Interesting, because when I ask that question, it's fun to ask that question to different groups at different times, because you get different answers as well. So the most common answer I get, what is yoga? Is the union, it's a connection between body, mind and spirit. And I think somebody mentioned that here, but mostly you also mentioned the connection between you and nature and the universe. So that takes it further than just the connection between me, myself and I, you know what I mean? Because connection between body, mind and spirit, that's just localized within you, right? And then it was interesting as well to hear you all speak about yoga as a lifestyle, as encompassing more things, as beyond asana, as this whole how I am with myself and others. So I can tell that you already have a background on, like, probably because of the online course, but you have a background of the whole yoga philosophy. So that's really good, very promising, nice to hear. So yoga comes, so first of all, just the word itself, you might hear it pronounced in different ways. So obviously the most common one that we're all using is yoga. But you will hear some, especially Indian speakers, say yog without the A at the end. And then if you keep noticing that, you'll also hear some Indians say asana and asan. Anulom Vilom Pranayam or Anuloma Viloma Pranayam. So it's an accent thing. In the south, they pronounce the last vowel. In the north, they don't. So sometimes you will hear yog. Right? So this yog or yoga, the word itself comes from the Sanskrit yuj, and in French, that becomes the word J-O-U-G, if you're interested, but it's like an old French word. So in English, it's yolk, not the yolk of the egg, but this yolk of the one that you put on the animals, for farming. Seen one of these? Maybe not, maybe in pictures. I have a real one, a real old ancient one that we found at the chateau, actually. It's but it's so heavy we can't even bring it down. One day I'll bring it down so I can do my lecture around the yoke. So what's the purpose of this yoke? It's to have the two animals walk together in unison. They're carrying the plow behind them or some cart or something, right? But you can't have one animal going to the right and the other one to the left, or one going too fast and the other one too slow. So you have this device to bring them together. So this is how then yoga was translated as union. Okay. So what is it uniting? So it is uniting Brahman and Atman. And it's a lot bigger than just I'm connecting my body and my mind, or my body, mind and spirit. You could argue that body, mind and spirit is Atman. So the localized you, me, like who were we talking about yesterday when we said, okay, let's go around the room and introduce yourself. Hello, I'm Sunshine, I have 2 kids, I'm 48 years old, I do this, I started yoga at this age. That's me and my story. That's Atman. This is the localized soul, you and your journey, right? The Brahman is, you can think of Brahman as everything, but you can also think of Brahman as universal soul, or universal consciousness, or source, which you are actually not even part of. It's one thing to say you are part of Brahman, but it's another thing to say what you really are is Brahman, but right now you are having the experience that you are Sunshine, you are Chris, you are this other localized person, because you can't fully experience yourself without forgetting the source. You see? Because we can all like say, okay, well, like let's have a Halloween party tomorrow. We're gonna dress up as vampires. But I don't really believe I'm a vampire. I'm still sunshine, right? I have to forget that I'm sunshine in order to fully experience vampire, right? And not just wear the costume. Have you heard of method acting? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Explain to us briefly method acting.
Where you like become who the character is, so not even when you're rehearsing, it's in like your day-to-day life, you take on all of their characteristics and think how they would think and act how they would act, rather than yourself playing the character.
Yes, exactly. So if I'm playing like this homeless person, I don't just pretend and go on stage and I'm a homeless person. While I'm going to be the homeless person and live like that, so this is the type of acting where they say then you're not acting anymore because you become that person. So in a way, it's like your experience now is some sort of method acting, and you've forgotten who you truly are, which is Brahman. The other thing to say is, which my teacher Rick Weinman likes to explain it this way, when he talks about enlightenment, right? Because all of this is connected to neuro-linguistic programming or anything similar to that, psychology or hypnosis, there's I can't remember the technical term for it. It's either chaff and redirect or just pattern interrupt. There's something called pattern interrupt, and it's like let's say we're talking to each other. I'm talking to Kira and she's saying, oh, my life is so bad, and she's just like being very, very negative, and I say something like, oh, that painting is so red, and then she'll just go, what? And then, oh, yeah, then she forgets about complaining, you know. So that's a pattern interrupt. You say something completely out of left field, like not related to what you're saying. You've got something on your nose. You got something between your teeth. It's pattern interrupt. So it stops you from this pattern. And you can think of a mantra functioning that way in a way. It's like, oh, my problems, and like, okay, just chant this. That's kind of a low explanation from a mantra, but like mantra also has special vibration, and it's from that vibration where it has a special frequency, and that's where the real effect of the mantra is, right? The mantra is you can say also like it's connecting you to, it's like your phone line or your personal, what's it called these days, like Discord, to personal line to divinity or some form of divine, because there are mantras that are specific to a deity, to a god, like Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Ganesha Sharanam, Sharanam Ganesha, things like that, or and there are also mantras. For example, the mantras for the chakras, they don't mean anything, but they are simply vibration, vibrating at a certain frequency that relates to that chakra. Lam, Vam, Ram, Yam, Ham, Aum. I mean, people can put like different meanings to them, but actually they're just, from my understanding, they're just these vibrations. Similar to Om, for example, which is actually 3 sounds. It's not Om, it's Aum, A, U, and the M. You have to pronounce the whole thing when you're chanting it. Aum. So people will have different meanings for it. Oh, it means body, speech, and mind, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, da, da. Actually, it's just this vibration of creation. And if you stop there, that's already very, very beautiful. The frequency of vibration, the frequency of creation. When the world was created, you know, there's a verse in the Bible that was something like, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And what is word? Word is a sound, right? Just when I think about that passage, I just go, someone was chanting Om in the Bible. That must have been it. You know, did you not realize this? This is Om. Okay. Yeah, sound. Talk to any musician, and sound is everything. Vibration is everything. You know. Do we have musicians here? Yeah. What do you play?
I sing.
You sing. Oh, lovely.
And play guitar and piano.
Super. Okay, Karma Yoga, is that it? Mantra Yoga, what's the time? Okay, let's continue. There are 4 ways you could, there are secret mantras and there are open mantras. So it's nice, we have a lot to choose from, because when we teach our students, some people might not be comfortable with, like, why am I chanting to Shiva? I don't even know who Shiva is, or don't change me into a Hindu or something like this. But you can use, for example, if you wanted to, you don't have to, right? You can chant, for example, the chakras, chant Om. There are chants as well that are more of a blessing. like the one in your the online course, which was the Mahamrityunjana mantra. Om Triambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam. Well, I'm not going to chant it. There's a line, there's another stanza there, for example, Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Bangalam Bhavatu. And it's just like, I wish you happiness, I wish you fulfillment, I wish you... But it's a chant. So there are open chants and there are secret open mantras, and then there are secret mantras. That's the one that you get if you're initiated in a certain lineage, and then the teacher gives you a mantra to recite, right? Mantras, first you do them out loud. That's the first level. The second level is you say it just so you can hear it. So Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Then whispering Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. And then just in your mind, right? And it's the levels represent how your mind, it adjusts. You adjust the levels with how the mind, you connect it with how the mind is adjusting as well, right? Because sometimes your mind is like crazy, doing all these things, and then your mind becomes more and more subtle. So my example for that is like when you are in a room and everybody is talking and you want to make a speech. You know, sometimes you can't say, excuse me guys, I just want to make a speech right now. There's nobody's going to hear you, right? You kind of have to go like, oh, where's the glass? Ding, 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 oops. There's something like that, right? So, oh, excuse me everybody, I'm going to make a speech. But then you don't continue your speech like this. You lower your voice, shh, everybody goes quiet, the mind goes quiet. So then you can continue your speech in a lower form. And then, like in school, you know, children, let's all gather around the circle or something. And then the teacher lowers their voice. And they have this technique where I worked in preschools a very long time. They have this technique, they open the book and then they start to whisper. And they start to whisper, or their voice goes low. And now the story. And you can see all the children going, because now they really have to concentrate, like what she's saying is the story, yes. So they're concentrating now. So that's the same with the mantras. You start with out loud, then to yourself, and then just whispering, and then just in your mind. Okay, most subtle. Questions so far?
No, we know everything.
Damn it! Karma yoga. Karma yoga is funny. It's when you go on book yoga retreats and then you go like, I'm going to do a yoga teacher training or retreat in this place, and then you see this is the daily schedule, and then they have what's this? 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. No, something long, like 12 noon to 3 p.m. Oh, karma yoga. Oh, I wonder what that can. And then they make you do dishes and wash the toilets, and you're like, what? So karma yoga means action. Karma or kar, the root kar means action. So karma yoga is translated to our day-to-day lives. It's what we do daily. So you can go to a yoga ashram, and normally it's about, an ashram are places in India, they're like communal places. And usually you work as a community, you know, so somebody does the cleaning, or now it's your turn, and then somebody prepares this room, and somebody cooks. So it's this idea of working as a community. But it's also the idea of everything that you do is karma, your action here in the world. What are you doing here on earth? What are you doing? I just had an English lesson this morning, and this woman is very intelligent, and we were talking about AI, and she's just recently reading this book about AI, because I got her to start reading about AI. So now she's super engrossed in it, and then she's like, we're not going to have any more jobs in the future, so what are we going to do? And it's like, yeah, what's our point as human beings? So what's your karma? Karma just means action, but then there's also this concept of dharma, which is now quite more interesting. So dharma can mean two things. Dharma, on the one level, can mean teaching. So I'm giving you dharma right now, okay? So dharma, okay. Or like, okay, here, read this book, and there's a lecture about this topic. That's the dharma, the teaching, okay? The other dharma is, I can't find a good English word for it, but it's more like your thing. I think this is the best English translation. It's your thing. You can say your vocation, but that's not a good word these days. Maybe in the past, like, there's also like your calling. Yeah, but it's not really, the calling is more a mission. It's like, I have to do this thing, you know. But it's not really that. It's just, yeah, it is a little bit like that, but it's also like it's your thing. It doesn't feel like it's a mission, I have to do it, but it's more like, this is your element, this is what you do, and you just feel comfortable doing it, and when you do it, it feels like, this is what I am supposed to do in either in this life, the rest of my life, or just at this time of my life, right? So this is the dharma. So your dharma can be like to sing. It doesn't mean that you're going to be a superstar singer. It doesn't mean you're going to be rich singing. It doesn't even have to. It doesn't mean that you're going to be successful. It could mean that, but it doesn't have to. But it just means that that's what you do in life, and it's where you feel comfortable, and it's not even a passion, because it's kind of a continuation from a past life, and you could be really good at it or not, but it's a continuation. It's just your kind of flow, the trajectory of your life right now, and it's this, you know. And it doesn't even need to be like you're super excited about it, but you just know that you have to do it, or this is what you do. That's the dharma. If you don't know what your dharma is right now, wait until you are maybe 30, 31, 32. Because this is, anyone here interested in astrology? Yes? This is the first Saturn return. So when you're born, Saturn, all of the planets were in a particular place, right? Saturn was in a particular place when you were born. When you reach 30, 31, 32, somewhere there, Saturn goes back to that place. And Saturn is the planet of like sobriety, very serious planet, very like time to do business planet, you know. Venus is more like, let's enjoy everything. And then Saturn's like, where are you going to get this money from? Enjoying. Yeah. Okay, so this is like, we're serious. Did you pay the bills? You're partying. How are you going to pay for this? So that's Saturn. So Saturn return comes, and then you sort of get serious with life, or life just sets you into a different path. And more often than not, that's when the Dharma becomes clear. Yeah?
Does Saturn return again?
Yes. 60 plus.
Okay.
Around 60.
And
I'm not
what
sure.
happens then?
You get like a new lease of life. It changes again. Yeah, it's something like, now I want to do this. Yeah,
Retirement.
Yeah, but that's also new life, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. Okay, so in some ways the Dharma became the caste. The Dharma is very beautiful, right? And in very many ways it's related to astrology. Fortunately or unfortunately, it became the caste system, not just in India, but in many parts of Asia. You know, when you're born and this is you're in this caste, you're the warrior or the priest or the traders, and yeah. Okay. So let's go to Tantra Yoga, just explaining it very briefly because all of these concepts are very large. Tantra Yoga is seeing the world as divine, transcending the humanity. You're uniting with the deity. In more practical ways, you can think of Tantra Yoga as more with the visualizations, with the chakras, with the rituals, inner world. It's the one that's very close to shamanism, in my opinion, the Tantra Yoga. It's the oldest form of yoga, actually. And we still have vestiges of it. So here's what the interesting thing that happened in the history of yoga, somewhere in the history of yoga. Tantra Yoga was really more prevalent, but it was only practiced, you're thinking in the past, this was only practiced by the yogis who had special powers, who lived in caves, who lived in burial grounds and outside of society. So it's very hard to reach for ordinary people, and ordinary people didn't understand it because it's weird, it's bizarre, right? And then there were some abuses that happened as well, because visualizations, rituals, see the world as perfect. So you can abuse this. You can be like the Tantra Yoga teacher and just say, okay, well, you do this job for me, and then you will get my blessing. So some abuse like that can happen. There are many stories. Even the story of like Master Naropa when he met his master Tilopa, and he, like the teacher was testing him, so he said, build me a tower over there, and he had to carry rocks. He built a tower. He's very tired, and then he finishes. I think the master even said something like, build me the tower before sunrise or something like this. So he builds it, and then the next day he's like, okay, so please teach me. And then the master Tilopa was like, bish. He sends lightning and destroys the tower. Build it again. And so the story is very beautiful. It was about testing the desire of the disciple, etc. Are you the good vessel where I can pour the teachings? That's the one side of it. And the other side of it is like, dude, you just abused this guy for no reason, right? So there can be things like that. It's a serious thing. So there was a breakaway group that said, well, we're having none of that. It's too hard to understand. There's abuses. This yogi is saying, have sex with me and then you will be enlightened. I kid you not. I had this one book. I forgot the name of the saint already, but he's still revered. Like, I think he has a temple somewhere in Nepal. But it's a Tibetan saint. And it's the story of his adventures, right? And he is going around the different villages, and his poetry is written there, and he's bringing about enlightenment to the women. And then he talks about his magic penis, and then he talks to this beautiful maiden and my magic penis, and if you come to my room, and then I will enlighten you with the power of my magic penis. And this is I bought this book in Dharamshala in MacLeod Ganj in India, which is the home of the Tibetan refugees. This is a legit book, right? And this is a real saint, and it was written like with no malice, right? And to be honest, when I was reading it, I didn't have any malice. Like, okay, great, fantastic. And then now that I'm lecturing, I'm thinking, something is wrong here, So it can be abused. I'm not saying they all abuse it, but it can be abused, right? There's another story of like. This is horrible. There's this story of this Mahasiddha. Remember we were talking about the Mahasiddhas? Like the yogis, special power, very strange, weird. So he's sitting on a rock. And then he's like, he's eating a fish. And then somebody comes and says, oh my God, you're eating a fish. You're supposed to be vegetarian. You're harming. You're killing. You're supposed to be non-harming. And you're a yogi. You're a monk." And like, aha. He's like, who are you to judge? You're making judgments. You have to look at yourself. So that was his whole thing, was he's shocking the people to make them think, why are you judging other people? And then there was this another story of like he was bashing, the monk or the yogi was bashing somebody's head with a rock like this. And then the people said, "What are you doing? You're killing this person." He's like, "I'm just enlightening him." They're like, "What?" Okay, so you can see the problem, right? So then there was one breakaway group that said, "Okay, this is going out of hand. It's too difficult to reach. Let's just do yoga that is more straightforward, so that we don't make mistakes like this, and let's use our bodies first." Okay, because if we use our bodies, we clean the body, and make sure that the body has no disease, right? Because disease was rife back then. You didn't have medicine and everything was dirty. Clean the body, take all the disease away, then all of the energy channels will flow the way that it's supposed to flow, and then you can meditate. That was their simple solution, and this became Hatha Yoga by the Nath yogis. So the physical form of yoga is that. So if you really study Hatha Yoga, this practice has a lot of cleansing practices, just physically cleaning the body, and then asanas also. So this is the first type of yoga that actually listed down, okay, Paschimottanasana, or this posture, that posture, and they related it to like, okay, when I do this posture, this happens to my body. They related it to food, like they noticed, okay, maybe a yogi should eat this food and that food because that keeps you healthy. So this whole concept of like yoga as a lifestyle, really you could argue that started from Hatha Yoga. And Hatha Yoga itself, you can think of it, if you're thinking about forms of yoga, Bhakti, Jnana Yoga, Raja Yoga, Mantra, Karma, Tantra, Hatha Yoga encompasses all of the physical forms of yoga. So within those physical forms, you've got the styles of yoga. So this is what you're more familiar with. Remember when we were discussing yesterday, we've already discussed a little bit like, what style, this style. They're all Hatha Yoga. They're all Hatha Yoga in that they are all physical forms of yoga. But as a style of yoga, meaning how it is delivered, how it is taught, the methodology behind it, it's all different. So later we'll do a class where I'll teach you sequencing, where we'll talk about more like how is a Hatha Yoga, traditional Hatha Yoga class different from a Vinyasa class? How is that different from a Hatha Vinyasa? And how can because it's all the same postures if you think about it. But what makes a class Hatha and what makes a class Vinyasa, we'll talk about that in a different class. But yeah, these are the styles that you're more familiar with. So you've got Hatha, you've got Vinyasa, Hatha Vinyasa aerial yoga, Ashtanga. I think Ashtanga is on the schedule for tomorrow. Yin yoga is not an ancient practice. Here's another interesting look at the history of yoga is at a certain from like the 1930s to the 1960s, for a very long time, the very physical yoga was really dominating. Hatha yoga is popularized by Shivananda, even though it's very gentle, still like very physical form. And then later I'll tell you about the history of like when the kings of Mysore in the south of India, the king asked Tirumalai Krishnamacharya to create a yoga school there. The yoga school was opened for the soldiers and the sons of the kings. The soldiers and the sons of the kings. So you could guess that would be, you're talking about Indian men, ages, fighting age, right? That is a certain morphology. And soldiers, it's a certain discipline. So that type of yoga that he created, even though he himself, his teacher was Raman Mohan Maharshi, somebody, a hatha yogi in the forests of the Himalayas. So he brings yoga to Mysore and he creates a yoga that is more dynamic, more for strength, more for flexibility, really concentrated, really disciplined. And then you probably have never heard of Tirumalai Krishnamacharya, but I'm sure you've heard of his students, Patabi Joyce, Iyengar. So Patabi Joyce created Ashtanga Yoga, and it's also that format of very disciplined. It doesn't change, it's the same postures the whole time, right? The same set of postures. And the way it was taught, the way Ashtanga was taught was you memorize the sequence, you master one pose. If you master that, then you were taught the next pose. You go to the shala and you do your practice with your own breath, your own timing, and Patabi Joyce walks around and adjusts the students. There's no teacher in front of you saying, and now put your right leg to the front and your left leg to the back. You all do it, right? There is Ashtanga led, which is what we will do, where there is a teacher guiding you. But originally it was like this. The students memorized it, and then you come, you practice. So she might be doing the first pose, I might be already on the second one just because I'm breathing a little faster. Your lung capacity is different. And then there are no blocks or straps because you either do the pose or you do it incorrectly. Which meant that there was no give in yeah, but my morphology, my anatomy doesn't really allow me to do this pose. In the past, it was well, that's not correct, So now we know better and we know more about anatomy. And there is, in my opinion, in recent times, one of the great contributors to yoga was Paul Grilly. So Paul Grilly is an anatomist, and sorry Paul if you're listening to this, but if you look at his kind of body type, you can see I don't know if he sells his DVDs anymore, but he had this series of lectures. He went around, I don't know if he went around the world, but certainly around the States to teach comparative anatomy. And he had this DVD, I still have it, called Anatomy for Yoga, which I highly recommend.
You can also find it on Facebook, because you said with the channel, and I'm looking for some things.
But not the whole thing.
Not the whole thing.
Yeah. So, yes. So, basically in Anatomy for Yoga, he was saying that at a certain point, your bones will stop you from going further in a pose. So he talks about that extensively, right? So it's not oh, if I just practice hard enough, if I just practice long enough, then one day I can do this pose. Well, no, not necessarily. It actually depends on your bone structure. So he brings this information to yoga because in the past it was I just don't have enough faith in my teacher. And the teacher's there were lots of injuries in yoga in the past because we had this tradition, yoga had this tradition of the teacher would just force their bodies on you, like jujitsu. And you imagine you're in Baddha Konasana, you know, like butterfly, Baddha Konasana, and then your knees are up here, and then the teacher will just come up behind you and put their legs and force your knees down, right? So Paul really was sort of campaigning and going and telling teachers, look, you have to, this has got to stop because we're harming people. We have to respect anatomy and the limits of our bones, etc., etc. And then, as a reaction to the very physical, forceful forms of yoga, he developed Yin Yoga, which was already developed, I think, by Bernie Clark, but he popularized it and he developed it even further, from my understanding anyway. And so this was more like, okay, instead of like pushing and using my force to, get into the posture, I would like relax into the posture, allow time and gravity to open up my body, especially my deep connective tissues. It actually came from martial arts stretching, and the concept of yin is a concept of Taoism, which is a Chinese philosophy by Lao Tzu. And my favorite saying from Lao Tzu, which one of my friends from university used to say all the time, was, what was it? Why run if you can walk? Why walk if you can stand? Why stand if you can sit down? Why sit down if you can lie down? But he was just being lazy. But really, the concept of Taoism is to flow with nature as well, and it's finding balance. The Tao is centeredness, and whenever you're not in the center, you're either in the yin or in the yang. You're not in the Tao, and the Tao is the completion and the unity of the both. Anyway, restorative yoga, Bikram. What's the difference between restorative and yin yoga? Yeah, really nice answers, and it's very interesting because when I ask that question, it's fun to ask that question to different groups at different times because you get different answers as well. So the most common answer I get, what is yoga? Is the union, it's a connection between body, mind, and spirit, and I think somebody mentioned that here, but mostly you also mentioned the connection between you and nature and the universe. So that takes it further than just the connection between me, myself, and I, you know what I mean? Because connection between body, mind, and spirit, that's just localized within you, right? And then it was interesting as well to hear you all speak about yoga as a lifestyle, as encompassing more things, as beyond asana, as this whole how I am with myself and others. So I can tell that you already have a background on probably because of the online course, but you have a background of the whole yoga philosophy. So that's really good, very promising, nice to hear. So yoga comes, so first of all, just the word itself, you might hear it pronounced in different ways. So obviously the most common one that we're all using is yoga. But you will hear some, especially Indian speakers, say yog without the A at the end. And then if you keep noticing that, you'll also hear some Indians say asana and asan. Anulom Vilom Pranayam or Anuloma Viloma Pranayam. So it's an accent thing. In the south, they pronounce the last the last vowel. In the north, they don't. So sometimes you will hear yog. Right? So this yog or yoga, the word itself comes from the Sanskrit yuj. And in French, that becomes the word J-O-U-G, if you're interested, but it's like an old French word. So in English, it's yolk, not the yolk of the egg, but this yolk of the one that you put on the animals, for farming. Seen one of these? Maybe not, maybe in pictures. I have a real one, a real old ancient one that we found at the chateau actually. It's but it's so heavy we can't even bring it down. One day I'll bring it down so I can do my lecture around the yoke. So what's the purpose of this yoke? It's to have the two animals walk together in unison. They're carrying the plow behind them or some cart or something, right? But you can't have one animal going to the right and the other one to the left, or one going too fast and the other one too slow. So you have this device to bring them together. So this is how then yoga was translated as union. Okay. So what is it uniting? So it is uniting Brahman and Atman. And it's a lot bigger than just I'm connecting my body and my mind, or my body, mind, and spirit. You could argue that body, mind, and spirit is Atman. So the localized you, me, like who were we talking about yesterday when we said, okay, let's go around the room and introduce yourself. Hello, I'm Sunshine, I have 2 kids, I'm 48 years old, I do this, I started yoga at this age. That's me and my story. That's Atman. This is the localized soul, you know, you and your journey, right? The Brahman is, you can think of Brahman as everything, but you can also think of Brahman as universal soul, or universal consciousness, or source, which you are actually not even part of. It's one thing to say you are part of Brahman, but it's another thing to say what you really are is Brahman, but right now you are having the experience that you are Sunshine, you are Chris, you are this other localized person, because you can't fully experience yourself without forgetting the source. You see? Because we can all, like, you say, okay, well, like, let's have a Halloween party tomorrow, we're gonna dress up as vampires, but I don't really believe I'm a vampire. I'm still Sunshine, right? I have to forget that I'm Sunshine in order to fully experience vampire, right? And not just wear the costume. Have you heard of method acting? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Explain to us briefly method acting.
Where you become who the character is, so not even when you're rehearsing, it's in like your day-to-day life, you take on all of their characteristics and think how they would think and act how they would act, rather than yourself playing the character. Yes,
exactly. So if I'm playing like this homeless person, I don't just pretend and go on stage and I'm a homeless person. While I'm going to be the homeless person and live like that, so this is the type of acting where they say, then you're not acting anymore because you become that person. So in a way, it's like your experience now is some sort of method acting. And you've forgotten who you truly are, which is Brahman. The other thing to say is, which my teacher Rick Weinman likes to explain it this way, when he talks about enlightenment, right? Because all of this is connected to